The system's coming for Joe Biden, and Joe Biden's getting nastier about it. We'll talk about that tonight. We're going to talk to Jeffrey Tucker about all kinds of madness. What's taking place in the House? Are we about to get screwed again? Yes, all that's coming up tonight on I'm Right. Joe Biden's nasty. He's getting nastier. And let me explain what I'm talking about. Joe Biden's mean. He always has been mean. He's been a mean politician his entire career. The media sold everyone a bill of goods in 2020 when they were telling everybody, look at the nice old guy, Papa Joe. He likes ice cream and little kids a lot. But anyway, Joe's been a jerk forever. He's been a jerk to people on camera. I have the benefit, or I don't even know if you call it a benefit, of knowing a lot of people on Capitol Hill, House, Senate, so on and so forth. And I'll tell you a little inside baseball behind the scenes. When the cameras are off, Joe Biden's a jerk and always has been. Treats his staff like crap, treats people like crap. So we're used to Joe Biden being a little mean. But he's been extra mean recently, almost angry. Now, let's talk about the why, because it's important for you and me as American citizens. Is it you and I? I don't know, I went to community college. Anyway, as American citizens, it's important for us to understand, why is our president so mean? First, let's deal with his political reputation. Now, understand, everybody's ambitious on some level, right? Maybe your goal is to be the best mom ever. Maybe you want to be the best accountant ever. Maybe you want to be the best baseball player. I don't know. But people have ambition. When you're a politician like Joe Biden, whether you're a city councilman or a senator, no matter who you are, everybody dreams of being president one day. Anybody who wants to get elected dreams of being president of the United States one day. But here's the problem with being president one day. It's risky. Because you need to be president and have a decent reputation and serve 2 terms, or you go from, wow, that guy was president, to more, I don't know, think of like a Jimmy Carter. Oh, yeah. Remember when he was president? Joe Biden has worked his entire life, cheated, lied, stole, done everything humanly possible his entire life to be president one day. And now he's finally president of the United States of America. But here's the problem for Joe Biden. Joe Biden got elected at a time when communists now run the Democrat Party, in fact, run the entire United States government. And everyone around him, all his people, they're all committed communists. And they're all hell-bent on destroying the country. So there was no way Joe Biden's presidency was ever going to be popular or ever going to work. After all, is there a popular way somebody could walk into your home and set it on fire tonight? It was always going to be a disaster. The border was always going to be open. The economy was always going to go to crap. That's what communists do. They destroy things. So Joe Biden's facing the prospect of getting reelected, or more specifically, not being reelected, because he's so incredibly unpopular. Even CNN has an electoral map out showing Joe Biden getting curb stomped in 2024. JP Morgan, the finance giant, they even sell themselves as being nonpartisan. They're saying Joe Biden's going to drop out after Super Tuesday. And so that's a little bit of why Joe Biden seems so angry. That's a little bit of why Joe Biden gave a speech today at a church in South Carolina, and it sounded like this.
The word of God was pierced by bullets and hate, of rage, propelled by not just gunpowder, but by a poison. Poison that's for too long haunted this nation. What is that poison? White supremacy. Oh, it is. It's a poison. Throughout our history, it's ripped this nation apart.
Okay, so we'll get to the white supremacy part of that here in just a moment. But understand, I said there was a few different reasons why Joe Biden's so angry. He's watching his legacy fall apart. He's watching the prospect of being reelected fall apart. That hurts when that was your goal your whole life. That's one. 2, he has dementia. Everybody can see it. Everyone knows it. And people who have dementia, sadly, get really, 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 really nasty. It's part of what makes it such a vicious, vicious thing. You end up treating everyone, not just the public, you treat everyone like crap. It's something that makes people angry. That's 2. 3, these people hate you. And now we're at a place as a country where they feel as if they're so in control. They feel so secure about their power. Now they feel comfortable telling you they hate you. They feel very, very comfortable. And remember, this is new. This is not normal for a president to blast the supporters of the other party. That has really not happened much in the history of this country, yet this president will get up and call you a Nazi endlessly.
He calls those who oppose him vermin. He talks about the blood of America as being poisoned, echoing the same exact language used in Nazi Germany. We must be clear. Democracy is on the ballot. Your freedom is on the ballot. So knowing how his mind works now, he had one act left, one desperate act available to him: the violence of January the 6th. And since that day, more than 1,200 people have been charged for their assault on the Capitol. Nearly 900 of them have been convicted or pled guilty. Collectively, to date, they have been sentenced to more than 840 years in prison.
Joe Biden's angry. Joe Biden's bragging about locking you up in prison. Joe Biden's watching it all come apart in front of his eyes. Now, I want to focus on the Nazi white supremacist thing, as I promised you I would a couple clips ago, and now you heard the Nazi stuff. Let's talk about this. Here's something here's some of the internal politics Democrats are facing for 2024. They went down to a church today. It was all about white supremacy and evil white supremacists and Nazis and you're evil. Let me prepare you for a lot of that in 2024. Why? Well, remember, these people, these political people like Joe Biden, he's a pro at this. There's no humanity left inside of them. There's no soul. There's nothing, virtually nothing. Unless he stubbed his toe, you could never get Joe Biden to shed a genuine tear about something. There's none of that left inside of them. None of that. So you have to understand that, one. 2, because of that, everything is just about power. Every person they meet is somebody they can use for more power. When they talk about elections and the electorate, the citizens of this country, are simply divided up into friends, potential friends, enemies, friends who have to be coddled, enemies who have to be locked up. That's how they look at people. There's no humanity inside of them. And one of the demographics Democrats rely on in this country is black people. Black people have traditionally voted over 90% for Democrats. And so that's something most people know. But what a lot of people don't realize is this: Democrats bank on that. They take the black vote and they put it in the sure thing column. These black people, they are a sure thing. We're going to get 90%, and national elections are so close, they need that to stay 90%. It has to stay 90%. If it even drops down to 80, it's not like Republicans are about to win the black vote, but if it even drops down to 80, Democrats electorally will get wiped out across the board, all 50 states. They have to have that 90%. They have to bank on black people voting Democrat. But black people are angry with the Democrat Party because of the illegal immigration. It's flooding into the poor black neighborhoods, taking away their services, taking up their schools, taking things up. They're angry about it, and they're very concerned about holding that 90% number. Therefore, you're about to hear more open anti-white racism from Democrats in 2024 than you've ever heard in your life. And that will be what they consider to be Democrat outreach. You remember when Joe Biden famously stood in front of all those black people and told them Mitt Romney wanted to put them back in chains? You rolled your eyes and you groaned and you thought that was ridiculous. That was an appetizer compared to what's coming this year. Get ready for a whole lot more of that. and get ready for a lot of January 6th talk. Not just from the Bidens, from the media, where Jonathan Capehart, he cried on TV.
Thank you for what you did 3 years ago today. Please tell me your thoughts on this third anniversary.
Thank you for what you did. All right, so why all the January 6th stuff? Well, there's another even uglier side of what you're about to see in 2024. Good old-fashioned intimidation. Political intimidation, intimidating your political enemies is not new. This has been around for a very long time. It's something communists specialize in. But we've already had political prisoners in this country for 3 years. Why do you think Democrats brought one of their main henchmen, Matthew Graves, up to a podium and promised there would be more to come?
We have used our prosecutorial discretion to primarily focus on those who entered the building or those who engaged in violent or corrupt conduct on Capitol grounds. But if a person knowingly entered the restricted area without authorization, they had already committed a federal crime. Make no mistake, thousands of people occupied an area that they were not authorized to be present in the first place.
This is going to be an ugly time in America. I've warned you about this. This is probably going to make you uncomfortable, but I am right. But I've warned you about this over and over again. 2024 is going to shock even me. The things these people are planning, the things these people are going to do in order to hold on to power. And arresting their political enemies, that's just basic communism. That's how tyrants have always operated. And what you're going to see next year and in the years to come, it's going to be ugly, all right? Let's prepare ourselves for it. Let's talk to Jeffrey Tucker about this and so much more. He has many thoughts. We'll talk to him about it next. Now, there's one more thing. All these evil people who are hell-bent on destroying everything, they also run the monetary system. They're the ones printing trillions in unbacked currency. You know, we're going to talk later on in the show about yet another GOP cave, more trillions out the door, your dollar being destroyed in front of your eyes. It's not like it's being done in hiding. It's not like you have to take my word for it. You go to the grocery store, you see what they're doing. Do you have something to protect yourself with financially? Do you have gold? Do you have silver? In your physical possession. I'm not talking about gold bars like Bob Menendez. Do you have gold coins, silver coins? Everyone should have something. That's basic. Do you have it in your retirement? Call Oxford Gold Group. They will handle it all for you, and they handle it with ease. That's what I love about them. They make it easy. 833-995-GOLD, or go to oxfordgoldgroup.com/free. Don't get caught with your pants down. Get a hold of Oxford Gold Group. We'll be back.
We have to make our choice. I know mine, and I believe I know America's. We'll defend the truth, not give in to the big lie. We'll embrace the Constitution and the Declaration, not abandon it.
Seems so angry. Joining me now, the great Jeffrey A. Tucker, founder and president of the Brownstone Institute. Jeffrey, obviously it was an angry speech. What I've tried to explain to people over and over again is they should get ready for a lot of that in 2024. That's clearly going to be the strategy. He has nothing to sell, so he's going to sell locking you up in prison.
I think you're right. This was a chance for him to lay out an agenda. And unfortunately, an agenda and a tone. And unfortunately, what we found out is that it's all about enemyizing most of the country, certainly all Trump supporters, as basically insurrectionists. That's what the theme of the thing was. It wasn't just that Trump is an insurrectionist, it's that all of his supporters are too. They're rebels, they're dissidents, they're enemies of the state. But it was even slightly more intense than that. I listened to it rather alarmed to find out that he's using support of him as the test of patriotism, the test of loyalty, and the test of your allegiance to democracy itself. And I wrote in this Twitter post that somehow managed to get 1 million views. I don't know how that happens. The mysteries of X, right? But that I got a strong Chernenko vibes from him. Now, Chernenko was the fourth successor to Stalin. After Khrushchev, Brezhnev, and Andropov, then came Chernenko right before Gorbachev. And at that late stage in Soviet history, everything was falling apart, and everybody sort of knew this. I mean, the system was collapsing. Nobody liked it. The whole system was besought with problems: economic collapse, the disenfranchisement, sadness all around. They still claimed to be a democracy, and how could they have done that? Well, the message of all these successors to Stalin was repeatedly that all your problems are due to non-compliance. Because communism and democracy had enemies within that were preventing them from achieving their goals. So their number one goal is to keep them out of power. And so far as they're able to do that, therefore, democracy was preserved. Now, as a kid, I could never understand this. I always thought it was so bizarre. How can they claim to be a democracy when they don't have fair elections? Now I'm getting it. And Biden just made it really clear the other day. He represents democracy. His power is democracy, and he's doing you a favor by preventing you from supporting anybody but himself. That is really essentially the message that he broadcast. And by the way, that was the whole of the message, right? So you didn't hear anything about the problems of crime or homelessness or learning loss or inflation or the gradual decline of the cities, the demoralization of the American public, the loss of civil liberties, censorship. You name it. Wow. Immigration. Let's not call it immigration. Rampaging towards the border, and a party in power that lets everybody come across because they hope to be able to count them in the census to counter the immigration trends to the red states, right? That's what's really going on here. And everybody knows it. What I didn't say anything just then that anybody really disputes, anybody who's informed, but not one of those issues was mentioned in this long-winded speech. It was 100% about the enemy within, that we all had to rally around the great dictator to keep him in power, so that we could preserve, the America as we know it, as he understands it. And I wrote there that it reminds me of basically the theme and plot of every dystopian novel, from Anthem to Hunger Games to the Bug's Life, right? It's always about some big shot with power warning you about the terrible, terrible threat that's all around you and why you need to never question his judgment. And he's saving you from the bad thing. In this case, the pestilence of MAGA supporters. That was really the whole of it.
Jeffrey, it's very easy in this day and age. We all fall into it. It's not an age thing where everything's now. Everything's on your phone. We all live in the moment. And I think it's easy for people to forget that demonizing your political opponent's supporters is very new in this country. Politicians have always thrown poop at each other since the history of politics. But in America, that's really kind of started with Obama, a little bit of that deplorable talk from Hillary. Now, this is the norm from Biden. You never heard this before these days from Republicans or Democrats. You would always say that guy's the Antichrist. That's not new. But you never said that guy and the people who support him, they're the enemy. This is a new age and a dangerous age. I don't think people realize how new this is.
So I agree with everything you just said, and I think you're right. The biggest complaint in the past that we heard about American political culture was that there's too many negative ads and too many sound bites, right? But there is a presumption, there always has been in this country, that we did live in a democratic system that the people are ultimately control, and that the people should be in charge of picking their leaders, and the leaders recognize the deal that they wouldn't go into office with an expectation that they would hold power forever and use the power of the state to keep their opponents at bay. But it's not clear that is even a supposition anymore. Based on the speech I saw with Biden, I'm not sure that he's really ready and willing to accept the terms of civic engagement that we've always had in this country. It seems like something else. I mean, he's genuinely saying, basically, if we let this guy on the ballot and if you vote for him, then you're an enemy of America and you're an insurrectionist. I'm very concerned about that. And by the way, there's not a word I said that's some sort of partisan talking point here. I mean, like, I don't need to tell you that I've been inveighing against many aspects of Trump and MAGA-hood, for as long as I can remember, dating back 8 years, right? So this is not about that. This is actually a serious attack on the fundamental liberties and political liberties of the American people. And there's several aspects of this that worry me. Like, one of the ways they're keeping Trump off the ballot is by citing Section 3 of Article 14, which forbid revolutionaries and insurrectionists from taking office. Now, that's a bit of an anachronism, because it dates back to the Civil War, is in effect repealed by further legislation in Congress that basically granted amnesty to all the Confederate secessionists. So they're resurrecting this thing, I think, only for the second time since in the postbellum days. But if you look at Section 3, there's also a line in there that says that it's not just insurrectionists that are forbidden from taking office. They're legally deprecated, but also those who aid and abet them. Okay, now, don't call me crazy here, but given the legal interpretations of the Biden administration these days, it's not too much of a stretch to imagine that in the months ahead, even before the November elections, that aid and abetting clause of Section 3 will be invoked against all Trump supporters. I mean, like, if you have retweeted Trump or celebrated Trump or praised him on X, on social media somewhere, maybe that's evidence that you're aiding and abetting the enemy. That's how far we've come. And by the way, that is not a big stretch. Look what they did all to the 1 million plus people that gathered on January 6th. I mean, if you happen to be there, I mean, you're not sleeping well at night because you don't know when the next knock at the door is coming. Yeah, so it's serious. These people are spending a very long time in pre-trial prison, just for their political views, awaiting investigation and judgment. Without attorneys to represent them. So this is real. These are not just political talking points anymore. We're faced, I'm sorry to say right now, with something that's fundamentally un-American, something we've never seen in this country, which is just the full demonization of political competition itself. That seems to be what's at stake. I say that, I've checked myself again and again. Am I thinking, am I getting too pessimistic? Am I being too extreme here? But I don't think so. It seems like your most pessimistic prognostications in the last year have, just wait a few months and they become true. And you wonder how you could have been so naive. So I think the speech by Biden is a really dangerous omen for what we're going to be experiencing between now and November.
I'm worried you're correct, my friend. Jeffrey, we didn't even get to the COVID stuff. You're going to have to come back soon. I ran out of time. Jeffrey Tucker, you are the best. Thank you so much. Look, it's not just me saying it. This is going to be a bumpy year. We're going to hang on and enjoy the ride, right? All right, don't worry, we're not done. Let's talk about the useless GOP getting ready to sell us down the river again. We'll talk to a decent member of the GOP next before we get to that. Let's talk about this. Your timeshare. I hear from people all the time now because everyone knows I'm partners with Lone Star Transfer. And I hear from people that call and they complain or they email and they complain, Jesse, I can't even get in my timeshare anymore. It's one of the most common complaints. They're all booked up all the time. And they're doubling fees. Annual fees have doubled in some cases. Special assessments. People are done with it. But they think they're stuck in their timeshare forever. And when they call, they're mad. Oh, sorry, sir, we're all booked up for the next 5,000 years. Okay, I'd like out. Nope, sorry, you can't do that either. You signed the contract. Then they don't know what to do. You hang up the phone, you yell at your dog, and you go outside. You don't have to yell at your dog. Leave your dog alone. Call Lone Star Transfer and get out of that timeshare. Legally and permanently. This family business will legally and permanently get you out of your timeshare forever. They guarantee it. 99% of the time, Lone Star Transfer gets you out. They'll put it in writing. Be done with the timeshare. Say goodbye to it. Call them. 844-310-2646 or LoneStarTransfer.com. We'll be back. Well, I hope when the congressman joins us next, he's going to tell me what I am about to say is wrong and it's not going to happen. But it was reported over the weekend. You know, you can get into dangerous territory whenever you get into that. It was reported stuff that new House Speaker Mike Johnson came to a tentative agreement with Chuck Schumer on a $1.6 trillion bill of your money. So while you're paying $6 a pound for burger, apparently nothing is going to slow down at all in Washington, D.C. But let's hope I was misinformed. Joining me now, the new chairman of the wonderful House Freedom Caucus, basically the only people who are worth anything in Washington, D.C., Bob Good of the great state of Virginia. Congressman, okay, tell me what I heard was wrong and that was false reporting and fake news.
Well, Jesse, great to be with you. And I wish I could tell you that you were wrong, but you were right, as you typically are. And unfortunately, it's closer to 1.7 trillion. So last year's omnibus spending bill that we all criticized so much, rightfully so, that was some $1.64 trillion. This would be $1.66 trillion, so about $20 billion higher. So we will be the Republican majority that has increased spending year over year by about $20 billion. Without any exchange of policy wins. So there's two components to spending bills. One, how much money you're spending, or in this case, borrowing. And then secondly, how you're spending the money, what you're trying to accomplish, what you're spending those dollars towards. And there's no reason to believe we're going to have any significant policy wins since we haven't in the past year.
Okay. Can you help all of us, myself included, understand something? Mike Johnson, I've had Mike Johnson on this show before. I know Mike Johnson to be a principled human being from what I know of him and a staunch conservative. And he has been utterly useless in his 15 minutes as Speaker of the House and has got us nothing. Did something happen to Mike Johnson when he walked into the Speaker's office? Did they do some kind of a lobotomy there? Or what? This is not the Mike Johnson I know.
Well, admittedly, we don't have a lot that we can hang our hat on or a lot that we can point to in terms of successful things that have been done in the past 2.5 months or so since he has been Speaker. I would point to the Israel supplemental, standing our ground on that one, that hey, had to be a standalone, it had to be paid for, it wasn't going to be hijacked by funding for Ukraine. Almost $100 billion had nothing to do with Israel. That was a win. Releasing more of the January 6th tapes, that was a win. Standing strong so far on H.R. 2 as our border security policy, that is a modest win so far. That's been held to. But there's been failures. There's the continuing resolution that was similar to the one that was passed 30 days prior. There was the NDAA, which was basically a Democrat bill without the Republican policy changes. There was the FISA extension, which didn't have the reforms that were necessary. It was just reauthorizing FISA for another 90 days or so without the changes to protect our constitutional freedoms. And then there is this agreement, which is higher than the FRA, Failed Responsibility Act from last summer, that he voted against and most of us voted against, or at least most conservatives voted against, I should say, and that we railed against. But this is some $70 billion higher than the FRA, the debt limit increase that was last summer. And again, we don't have the policy wins in terms of, gosh, if you're going to spend more money, at least be accomplishing Republican prior policy objectives instead of the Democrat policies that were in place from last year.
Is the House Freedom Caucus getting more powerful? Because Lord knows we need them to get more powerful. We need this caucus to grow and grow and grow, because I can only assume he continues to cut these deals because he doesn't have to worry about the Freedom Caucus. Do I have that wrong?
Well, we've got just really about a 2-vote margin right now. We're going to be a couple of members short this month, and it's very narrow. And essentially, you've got to have every Republican vote for something in order to advance it. However, the House ought to be the stronger of the two legislative bodies. Having the House majority ought to mean something. It ought to result in something where we would at least get half of our priorities accomplished with the House majority. As you know, the Senate has to have 60 votes to advance legislation. They've only got 51 Democrats, so they can't advance anything without 9 Republicans helping them. We don't have that problem in the Republican House. We can pass policy and legislation with just the votes of all Republicans. However, there is a difference among the Republicans. Not every Republican truly wants to cut spending. Not every Republican is truly willing to do whatever it takes to secure our border. Not every Republican is willing to walk away. If you're not willing to walk away from a deal, then you're going to lose in the deal every time.
Congressman, can you help me understand why every Republican doesn't think, I don't need them all to think like me or like you, but why are they not all universally concerned about the spending? This isn't Republican or Democrat, left, right, up. This is simple math. It's not even a prediction. It's not even an opinion. If we don't stop this, we're all going down. And yet nobody seems interested in stopping this. Neither party, I should say. I know individuals like you are. We're all going down if they don't stop.
You're correct that we didn't reach $34 trillion just because of the Democrat Party. Yes, the Democrat Party is better at spending than we are, and they don't even feel bad about it. At least most Republicans feel bad about it, it would seem. But when you're borrowing $200 billion a month, you've got unprecedented debt to GDP. Again, $34 trillion in debt, about a $2.5 trillion deficit on an annual basis now. The interest on the debt's nearly $1 trillion. Doesn't that matter? Don't we really care? How could we be willing to increase spending and not significantly cut spending? Even a year ago, what we were battling over coming out of the speaker battle and through the limit, save, grow battle into the debt ceiling battle, and then once again into the continuing resolution. So all the way through January through September with the previous speaker, the conservative position, the compromised conservative position was to cut spending down to about $1.47 trillion. So maybe about $150 billion over what is spent this year. If we would cut it by about $150 billion, modest, frankly, not even 1 month's deficit. And we couldn't even get all Republicans to join us there. We couldn't get the previous speaker to join us there. And that was the dollars that the fight was over. Now we were fighting for policy change as well. But really, one has to ask, to your question, and I can't give you an answer, why don't all Republicans truly care about our spending? Why aren't all Republicans truly committed to doing whatever it takes to get our fiscal house in order? Why would we allow this to happen on our watch with the House majority?
Alejandro Mayorkas, I have to ask you about this before I let you go. Well, here is that genius.
Migration, the challenge of displaced people, is a subject that comes up in every single conversation. We have the effects of climate change, poverty, increasing level of authoritarianism, the very many challenges that are at the root cause of the displacement of people around the world.
Okay, so the House is going to impeach Alejandro Mayorkas, I believe, and that's fine. Obviously, he's a dirtball who should be impeached. He opened up our border. Is this going to prompt these people to do anything to secure the border, or are they just going to plug in another open borders hack in there?
Well, he is executing the policies of Joe Biden. Joe Biden is intentionally facilitating the border invasion. I went back to the border last week for my 6th time in the 3 years that I've been in Congress, and what struck me was how much effort the administration is applying to try to prevent Texas from securing their border. They are suing Texas and fighting Texas to prevent Texas from executing their own border security. As you know, the administration, Mayorkas, and the president's spokesperson says, "Oh, we don't have the resources, we don't have the personnel. Congress hasn't given it to us." And yet, when Texas tries to stand in the gap, stand in the breach, and protect their citizens, the administration is literally suing them and fighting them to prevent them from doing that. This is on purpose. This is willful. This is intentional. Irreparable harm has been done. Yes, he deserves to be impeached. Yes, the president deserves to be impeached. But the Senate is unlikely to convict, as we know. And so I suspect that it will not continue the policies, or will change the policies. But what would change it, Jesse, is if we refuse to fund this government that facilitates this border invasion. So we ought to be using this spending fight right now to say, we're going to fund national security, national defense, the essential things that keep Americans safe and secure, and nothing else until the border is secure. That's what we ought to do as Republicans. That's what we've been calling on the Speaker and the House leadership and the entire Republican conference to do. Let's stop funding this government Let's stop giving them the money that's bankrupting us anyway. Most of the things the administration is doing we don't agree with. Why do we keep giving them money to facilitate this border invasion?
Amen. Congressman, go get them. Rooting for you. We're in your corner over here. All right. Let's talk about those states, the wonderful states. First, before we do that really quickly, you know we have a special coming out on Francisco Franco, El Caudillo of Spain. He had to go fight a civil war against a bunch of communists. Fascinating historical person, no matter who you think of, or no matter how you think of him, I should say. You have to go become a First TV supporter, though, to watch that special. Go to thefirsttv.com/support and sign up today. You'll enjoy it. We'll be back.
If you believe he engaged in insurrection under the plain meaning of the 14th Amendment, you believe he's ineligible to be president.
Those laws, those are up to the states. They have different laws from state to state. I don't think he should ever have been president. The Constitution. But nonetheless, there is a view of the Constitution in Article 14, Section 3, that he should not be able.
It's actually physically painful watching Grandma Vodka try to get through sentences anymore. Either way, it almost sounded like she was doing kind of a drunken pitch for states' rights. So I'm all on board. Joining me now, the great Andy Roth, president of the State Freedom Caucus Network, and Rick Bratton. We've never had him on this show before, state senator from the great state of Missouri and chairman of their Freedom Caucus, so we know he'll be okay. Andy, is that Grandma Vodka coming out for the 10th Amendment? I couldn't really tell what she was saying there.
I think she needs to go on TV more often. I think that's fantastic. I mean, she's going to just help Donald Trump get more votes and get elected and be our next president. So more power to her.
Rick, all right, let's talk about this removing Trump off the ballot thing. Okay, it's dirty, it's horrible, we get that. That's what communists do. That's how they operate. Tell me why red states shouldn't begin removing Joe Biden off the ballot. Now, I don't want to live in that kind of world. That sounds awful to live in that kind of country. But communists only understand fear and pain. You're not going to reason with them. You're not going to point out their hypocrisy and change their mind. Why shouldn't Missouri move him off the ballot tomorrow?
No, exactly. And that's what we have to do. We have to fight fire with them because they only understand, fighting back. Placating to the left and playing the nice guy does not work with the communist radical left. So that's exactly what we have to do. And that's what I filed a bill to do, was to combat that and fight back. At least if it goes to the Supreme Court, well, if they're hoping for a decision on one end or the other, it could potentially be beneficial to where, they just throw the whole thing out and everybody remains on the ballot.
Shoot, I'll take it. Andy, Missouri has a Freedom Caucus now. How'd that happen?
Yeah, I know, right? We're terribly excited about this. I've joked with Rick and others. I'm a native Kansan, so I should hate Missouri. But when these guys reached out to us and said they wanted to form a Freedom Caucus, we were ecstatic. So we've been working with them over the past couple of months. They're all a hardcore group of conservatives, and they're already hitting the ground running in Jefferson City. The establishment there has already responded negatively. They've already broken the rules of the state Senate because the Missouri Freedom Caucus has been loud on the floor. So I think this is going to be the beginning of a beautiful relationship and a friendship, and Missouri citizens are going to benefit the most out of it.
It's clearly one Missouri needs because they're leading on so many things. But Rick, I saw they're the 21st most conservative state. I go through this with Texas, so I understand. I hear how red Texas is, but we have the biggest weenies in the GOP here that never want to do anything with any teeth at all. Is that what you're going through in the red state of Missouri?
Well, so-called red state. I mean, honestly, What we have in Missouri is Democrats running as Republicans because they know they cannot get elected as the Democrats that they are. And I think that's what most states are facing. The electorate thinks that they're electing a super majority of Republicans to do big red things, only to be disappointed year after year after year. And I think that's exactly why we have to show we are the conservative North Star, the actual patriots willing to press in. And that's what I loved about being a part of the Freedom Caucus, and Andy and Justin and Greg and all the guys coming alongside us to help to make this a fruition and really give the grassroots something to root for and to get behind.
Andy, make me feel better without lying to me. Are the red states getting better? The GOP's in the red states. I'm not worried about the people. And I know this is a process, as Rick just pointed out, but are you starting to see an improvement, a GOP with a little bit of a spine?
Yeah, and just to talk our book, I think the red states are going to get better because we now have state freedom caucuses in a lot of them. But let me give you one example. In Louisiana, our Louisiana Freedom Caucus was launched about this time last year. They went into session. They fought like principled conservatives that they are. And because Louisiana is a little different, they had their elections in the fall. And because of the success of the Freedom Caucus, they were able to elect a lot of conservative lawmakers. And so the Louisiana Freedom Caucus went from 9 members now over 20 members. And in addition to that, they elected Jeff Landry, their AG, as their new governor. So for the first time, we have a state with a conservative governor and a state freedom caucus. So I've been telling everybody that will listen that Louisiana has the potential and the opportunity to take a run at Florida as being one of the most conservative states in the country.
Okay, so what's wrong with Texas, Andy? Do you not have my address or what? Come down to Texas. We need you to fix things down here.
Well, I mean, Texas is a Spanish soap opera as far as I'm concerned because of all of the troubles that they're going through. But I will tell you that there is a small number of lawmakers in the Texas House that could form a true Texas Freedom Caucus. So we're working on it, and eventually we'll get there, and we'll make sure you're there and present for the launch.
Rick, I'm very concerned about a very evil federal government, a federal government that's getting tyrannical by the day, frankly already is, and a federal government that's attacking its own citizens when the states don't ever fight back on behalf of those citizens. Is the future of these red states standing up against the federal government? No, I'm not talking Civil War, crazy stuff, but shouldn't these red states look at themselves as protectors of their citizens instead of, oh, sure, Mr. FBI, please come kick in his door and gun him down?
Oh, absolutely. And if you have an actual founder's vision of what this country was supposed to be, it was supposed to be the states, fighting back against a tyrannical federal government. That's exactly what we have. Unfortunately, like here in Missouri, everybody has for years loved the federal dollar. Now we have this federal control that's occurring in these states by the carrot and the stick approach. And now they don't want to have to push back in order to push back for freedom and liberty because they're fearful of losing federal funds. So we've got to wean ourselves from all this federal monopoly money they're printing and sending to the states. That way we're able to have no strings attached to fight back. So that's where we really have to start.
When you meet with your fellow state senators, are they aware of where we are nationally, or do they seem painfully naive and you have to spend all your time shaking them to try to wake them up to how important this fight is now?
I don't think they realize it. I really think a lot of them are asleep at the wheel. They just want to go along to get along and just do the status quo. Now they look at Washington like, oh man, it's really bad out there, but not even looking in their own backyard as to we're helping to facilitate the crazy by not standing for freedom and liberty, not being that conservative conscience, because courage is contagious. If we have our state delegations, being courageous, being loud, being vocal, hey, maybe our federal delegation will start to do the same thing, so it can spread, but it takes bold leadership and willingness to do that. That's exactly what the Freedom Caucus brings to the table, I believe, and hopefully that contagion spreads through the land. Because honestly, we're at the precipice, in my opinion, and that's what I tried to really express to people, everybody I conversate with. I hope they realize the gravity of where we're at as a nation.
And let me add to that, because, in the past, the establishment or the swamp in the 50 states, they have enjoyed operating in the dark. What they do is they talk about how big and bad the federal government is, but then they take their money and then nobody questions them because nobody's paying attention to the state level. What our state freedom caucuses are doing is exposing that, making the voters aware of the duplicity of what these state lawmakers, the establishment is doing, and forcing them for the first time ever to answer for their duplicity in public in front of all the voters. That's what I love about this.
I like it. All right, keep going. Andy, Rick, thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate it very much. Go get them. All right. It's time for Lighten the Mood. We have a very special one, a handicap version. Next. All right. It is time to lighten the mood. And every now and then on this show, we like to reach out to the less fortunate. Even on Lighten the Mood, we like to reach out to the less fortunate and wish them the best. And he's been in the news a lot lately. We want to wish the great Stephen Hawking a very happy 82nd birthday, even though he's dead now and he's tied to Epstein Island. So happy birthday, Stephen. Wishing you the best, brother. I'll see you tomorrow.